Welcome to the Mortgage Warrior podcast featuring Steve Dostal. Host Darryl Smart chats with the Mortgage Warrior about his no BS approach to financing. That will be sprinkled in with conversations with other people in the business and around the community. So without further ado, here he is, the Mortgage Warrior, Steve Dostal.
Welcome back. We're back with the Mortgage Warrior podcast, lucky number 13. My bud,
Matt Sundin. It's Matt Sundin Day.
Darryl Smart, Mortgage Warrior, Steve Dostal. We're back for episode 13 of the Mortgage Warrior podcast. Lots of sickness going around. You had it 1 week. I had it another week. It's fun times, eh?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It wasn't COVID, so but it was. Something else, I guess. I don't know. There's lots of crap going around. I mean, but all the conspiracy theorists will tell you it's because I got the jab or something.
Whatever. Yeah, I've got a tinfoil hat and I have two arms still, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right.
It's been a busy couple of weeks. Besides being laid up with some sickness too, eh?
Yeah. Everybody kind of wants to get all their stuff wrapped up before Christmas, and then then you don't hear a peep from anybody until the second week of January, and then. February is when really people start to kind of like, oh, I spent this much money on this, or I did that, or whatever, and then you get the phone call. Not necessarily that people that are just spending on Christmas, but what's happening now is a lot of people are getting shocked with their renewals because they're seeing that 4 years ago they had a 1.8 rate, and now they're being told that it's going to be like 5.5, to 5.25 on a renewal rate, which is a significant raise in their payment. Considering for what they, when they first came to me, or if they went to their bank or whoever.
Yeah, well, and it's a strange time of year too. Like you said, like everybody kind of, because it's Christmas and everybody kind of gets in that spending spirit, and then all of a sudden January hits, and well, they say in February, we'll probably talk about that February blah or whatever it is, but January, that right after Christmas, all the celebrations are over, and all of a sudden you look at the bank account and it's like, oh man, what did I do, or whatever, right? Yeah. Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the last 3 years have been kind of an oddball because of the low rates and pandemic and whatever, but we used to have parts where soon as like December 15th came, it was dead. It was dead until probably until the kids went back to school. Everybody started going back to their normal lives, and the holidays are over, vacations are over. But now it's starting to do the same thing again, because now the rates have gone up. Went up another 0.5 point, and then next month they're scheduled potentially to raise it again. Probably a 0.25 point, hopefully, but who knows? I mean, I'm not I'm not a mind reader or in predictions on that kind of stuff.
Well, it's one of those things where it's almost going to happen because, like you said, the rates did go up the other week, and it's just one of those things that it's just it's almost like almost a fact of life. Like, and it's one of those things that you're almost having to deal with because, like, even the price of shopping, grocery, you know what I mean? Like, we went to Costco yesterday, and we looked at the bill and it was like, usually this is like $400, but it was definitely not that. Yeah. Like, it's kind of with everything, right?
Well, it's kind of funny. You go into like Fortino's, you're gonna plug, Fortino's. You want to pay me, for a head of romaine lettuce was like $6.99.
That's insane,
right? Or you go to Costco and you get the 4 heads of romaine lettuce for $9.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Costco does have a good thing. I mean, they make their $1.50 hot dogs, which have never changed.
That's a tradition.
You got to get the hot dog there, right? I mean, for $1.50, how do you say no to that, right?
Well, the wife did say, right? Like, she goes, "Is it too early?" I think it was like 10 o'clock yesterday. Is it too early for a hot dog? It's never too early for a hot dog. I'm sorry.
No, but you know what? You're really seeing a big influx of change, and it was funny because because since I moved my office, I was able to go through a lot of other documents I haven't seen in a while, and I found my very first mortgage document, and from 2001 from MCAP. It was a 7-year mortgage, and my rate was 4.89%. A 7-year term, 2001, right? So 21 years ago.
That's insane.
Bought our house, my first house, and that was the rate, and that was a great rate at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody back then was thinking variable.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody, wanted the fixed rate, and the 7-year. I was told it was. What's her name? Vicky Kermiris was my real estate agent, and I used George Liu's father, George Sr.
Yeah.
He was my mortgage broker at the time, right? But you look at how traditionally what rates were. I mean, the past 4 or 5 years, we've been just blessed to having these low rates, which are causing huge issues now.
Well, it was almost like let the good times roll, almost, right? For quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at what's been on the news lately, and there's a big developer out in the Brampton area that have been, selling pre-sale homes, and and everybody in Brampton, and whether you're from Brampton or Mississauga or wherever in Ontario, you're getting a big influx of people, thinking that real estate is never going to come down. Well, what has happened is, again, another report that some family in Brampton bought a pre-construction home for $1.9 million with a $90,000 upgrade package, and only to find out that this guy is just an Uber driver. I mean, if an Uber driver is making $300,000 a year, like,
sign me up, man.
Sign me up too, right?
Yeah.
But it really falls into the due diligence of the client, number one, but B, the builder. Like, why is the builder looking at these people, their application? Why, like, instead of these people just going to their local friend who's a broker or a banker, you know what, here's $100, I'll write you a letter, write me a letter and say that I could qualify to buy this, because a lot of them just assume that they could do an assignment sale, pay the builder an extra 10 grand, and they never live in it, and they just get their realtor buddy who probably talked them into it, to go and do that. Like, if you're a realtor and you're talking to somebody that only making $50,000-$60,000 a year, and you're getting them to buy into this property, like, you should just lose your license.
How do you fall into those traps? Is it a matter of being naive or just kind of hopeful? What do you think?
Well, I think it's the Canadian dream has been real estate, right? So you're looking at somebody that's an Uber driver or whatever. I mean, before I did mortgages, I when I started doing mortgages, I was delivering pizzas with Domino's in the evenings, because I had to keep I wanted to be able to afford things. So jumping from one industry to another. But even then, when I bought my house, it was $115,000, not $1.15 million or $1.9 million. But again, it's the due diligence of yourself personally. Like, you got to be, know that this market wasn't going to stay the way it was, since the past three years, right? Every mortgage broker I know, every real estate agent I know has been in the game for a long time, made bank on these last 3 years.
And what about the builders too? We should talk about the builders. What do they need to do as well? Like, almost protect themselves from things.
Well, I mean, if you're a builder, I mean, you don't care that the property is appraising lower, because at the end of the day, if that person can't close, you're just going to take the property back and sell it for the more profit that you would have, sold it for, because if you, for example, if they bought it at 1.6 million or 1.9 million, well, how much money was that builder making on each one of those homes? Right? But now that if they putting 20% down, which is like almost $400,000 money, I mean, geez, like, where are these people getting that kind of money anyways? Like, but people lend people money. People will just gift you money, like your mom and dad could gift you. But sometimes people will just borrow off other brokers or whatever that say, listen, you know what, well, you pay this much money on there, and then you're right, the builders should do more due diligence on how they're having their salespeople bringing in these deals,
too,
right?
Isn't it? Or at that point they don't care, right? I suppose, especially apparently in Brampton, when things just go south there.
I hate to bring it up again, but I mean, Brampton has been the epicenter of a lot right, in the real estate, right? I mean, you have a lot of people coming into our country, and it's not just South Asians, it's Asians, it's like Caucasians, it's anybody that in that area that saw how quickly that this stuff was rising. And again, when you're making that kind of money on each commission, you're going to do what you can to be able to put food on your family's table. But now they're having protests out there saying they demand that the government do something and help them, but you're the one that signed on the dotted line. You're the one that agreed to go in no conditions. You're the one that wanted a $90,000 upgrade. And, and hearing these people, like, I feel for them? On one hand, of course, as a human being, you're like, you got to have that empathy. But on the other hand, you're like, who are you listening to here?
Well, and it's, to use your catchphrase, at the end of the day, you have to do your due diligence, right? And that's what it comes down to. If there's a lesson in this whole section of this podcast, and that's with anything, right?
Well, I mean, again, it's the value of who you work with is key, because if somebody walks into my office, which I've had a few, where they've put in these offers on these places, and you're like, my God, especially the one out in Paris, like, because it took forever for those things to be built because of the the infrastructure and stuff that they had issues with. But
finally, a water tower.
Yeah, people coming to my office saying, "Well, I bought this then, and but I know it just appraised for a heck of a lot higher. Can I take the equity out of that, put that towards my down payment?" I'm like, No, you can't do that. You should have your down payment all arranged. Like, who did you talk to? Did you talk to your bank or another broker?
Yeah.
Right? Those are all the questions that I ask, but for the most part, what is happening now is that a lot of people aren't going to be able to close. The rates have gone so high that you can't qualify, because if it's 5.25% as a 5-year fix for a bank rate, you could qualify at 7.25%, which is
and there's a lot of empty houses there too, right? And they're still building. Like, every time you drive by there, you can see they're building.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, if you're in the Progressive Conservative Party, developer, like if you've supported Doug Ford, you just benefited from that. Like, they just had a big inquiry about all this, greenbelt land.
Greenbelt, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one of the biggest developers in Canada buys like 7,000 acres at a very low price, and then literally a week later, all of a sudden that goes for if you figure they could put 10,000 homes in that area at $1 million each, it's $1 billion.
Well, same thing's happening in Nanticoke as well too, with right around where Stelco is, and that was part of during the election. That was part of the thing, right? Or at least the provincial election. That's why nobody was talking, because it was kind of the same deal. And there's a lot of houses going to be built out there, probably.
Well, politician.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? I don't trust them as far as I could throw them, and I could throw them pretty far.
Yeah,
but realistically, when you're looking at what's happening, is that there's a big divide coming, like the people who have and the people who don't, and you're seeing it more and more, like especially in that Greenbelt area up by in that area by north of Brampton and so on, where everybody that comes to Canada, they want to go where all the action is.
Yeah.
So if you're a real estate agent and you're promoting, you can get people homes like they did on the CBC, where people, all the fraud or whatever, and then people are coming in from whatever country they're coming in at, and they're being told they can get all this fairly easy, but realistically, are they really understanding it?
No.
So that's where RICO has to come in. That's where FSRA has to come in. Then anybody involved with this kind of stuff needs to be held accountable, because you're basically burning out through people's livelihoods because they've saved up this money or they've brought family money in, and now they're not able to close. And if they have to walk away from it, they think the builder's giving you back the deposit you gave them, because they needed all that money to be able to start building that property.
Well, exactly, and they're just not doing it in one community. Like, you see some of these builders, they're all over the place. Like Matabee's another one where we were out in Bracebridge, I think it was last year, and they built they're building out there. It doesn't matter where you are, they're everywhere.
Yeah, Matabee's huge in Milton, right?
Yeah.
They pretty much built Milton, the suburbs of Milton, right? So
now they're building the suburbs of basically the outer layer of like the Bracebridge Huntsville. Now it's insane.
Well, because at the end of the day, you're running out of space here, right? And we're bringing more immigrants into our country, which is fine. I have no issue with that. Yeah. But where are you going to put them?
Well, right? Even people just moving away from the city as well. I think that's another thing that's happened, especially in our area.
Yeah. Well, if you're an investor, I mean, on the next podcast, we'll talk about the BRRRR.
Yeah.
Right. But man, like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. I mean, but here's the thing, right? Real estate's still going to go. People still need to sell. They need to, downsize. And people inherit properties. People have to renew.
Yeah.
People have debts they need to cover if family situations happen. Well, life situations happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're still pretty steady here. Like, we don't just focus on purchases. Like, we have the refinance, we have the equity takeouts, we have private money.
Yeah.
We have people building, right? Like, none of that has stopped. It's just now people are just getting that, the getting over the shock of what the rates are now.
Well, and it goes back to the first thing we were talking about. You're almost living with it right now because it's a fact of life, right?
Well, gas, like I said in previous podcasts, gas fluctuates up and down. You still need to put gas or diesel in your vehicle, right? And now all these people that go green and have these electric cars, well, it's costing you more money for electricity now.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, we could go on and on and on about what is more expensive, what is not. But let's be honest here. I'm just hoping that in the new year, with everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all that stuff that's involved with Christmas, that people can kind of just go over their budget and go over what's happening in life, because it's going to hit you hard and fast if you do not, have the right things put in place.
Exactly. So, any plans for the holidays?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I'm just gonna with family and my children and that's about it.
That's
nothing,
nice.
Nothing really major. I mean, we
take 2 weeks off and just kind of relax and.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be relaxing, but people do still call. People still do need to have certain things done. But at the end of the day, from us at the Mortgage Warrior, from my family to yours, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, happy holidays, my friend.
All right, man. Cool.
Thanks for watching episode number 13, and we will see you. You know what? We're going to see you next week. We're going to do a double bill. We're going to do something before the new year closes. So thanks for watching the Mortgage Warrior podcast. For Steve, the Mortgage Warrior Dostal, Darryl Smart, talk to you later.
Cheers.